our live to actually go live. Let's find out. And should go on any second. There we go. We are connected. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you to everybody tuning in. Hello. All right, just so you guys know, this is a workshop that we will keep up. It remains. So if you are watching the live, please just be respectful and know that I will probably skip any comments or questions that are not related to the DIY workshop. Questions such as what color is that? What product are you using? What materials should I buy for this? What kind of paintbrushes are you using, etc. I'll be giving all those details to my DIY ornament makers, but just letting you guys know, if I do ignore it, it's because this stays up forever. So welcome to the Critterosity Ink and Paint Studios. I'm Critterosity, aka Eva Lacey. I know I say it backwards. It should be Eva Lacey, aka Critterosity, but just so you guys know, these workshops are monthly. If you have any interest, you've been missing out and you would like to join, I've given you guys the whole information up top to become a subscriber. You can do it monthly where it just is a renewal automatically, or you can check out my Shopify where I'll have an option to add it each month as you please. But just letting you know, it's a little bit more doing it that way. Each month. So we are going to begin. I will check the live chat as we go. Sometimes people rewatch these at a later time. With this character, we have multiple layers here. I've given you guys a little bow, and it can be a little tricky because it kind of looks like it goes here, but you can line it up exact to where it goes. That way, if it's on the wrong side, you can definitely tell it doesn't match up exact. And this is the way that it's supposed to go right here. And then we have the little arms around the gingerbread friend, little stuffed animal or stuffed character, I should say. And that's how it should go. Some people, I believe I threw this into everyone's, but you do have the option of a little horn that can sit closer to us so you can see more of that depth, that kind of 3D look. But if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. And the way I drew the character is completely up to you. If you want to draw it that way, I've included it in the corner of the YouTube channel little video, and you guys can certainly use that, or you can draw the eyes open, but I'm going to do it the way that I first initially made it. And even mine's going to look slightly different because I'm freehanding. So the first thing you want to do is have a pencil of any kind, and I'm going to kind of figure out where the nose goes. And she has a cute little red nose. Okay, it's almost like a little gumdrop kind of deal. We're gonna make her eyes. So I'm just gonna draw a little line going across. I'm gonna move this little horn here. And I'm going to make what I call little sailboats. They're kind of like a triangular shape. Okay, a little triangle. And then we close up the ship here. Also a reminder that you can pause and rewind at any time and rewatch. So if you got this ornament to make, you can do with this video as you please. You can watch it now or later. And she's got some little eyebrows. This one I drew kind of right here. So I'm just gonna lower this one a little bit more. If you want to make your lines for the frosting, you can. I already know where the lines are going to go, so I'm actually going to kind of ignore drawing all the lines because I am going to paint over this. And then I want to draw the horns, so I'm going to curve this one in, and you can use this. If you don't want to use it, you can draw directly on here. You can make little wiggles, you can make straight lines, or you can use this piece right here. Draw that side, and then you can curve this one outward. I'm just drawing my kind of a loose C shape. It's not super close there, just about like that. And then what we're gonna do is make our little gingerbread face. If it helps to take this off, you can. He's got his little button there. I tried to give you a little guide. And then however you wanna make the eyes, a nose, and as always, a mouth. I'm going to be auctioning mine off at some point during my Instagram live sale that I'm having this week. And I also have my large ginger buns I'll be auctioning off this week on Wednesday night at 5 p.m. I'll do the auction probably an hour in, so about 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you do want to try to get a hold of the one original that I do of this. That's the way to try to get it this round. Sometimes I use my Pop Shop Live and do their auctions. So it's really up to you what you guys would like to do. We're gonna draw a circle here, and that's gonna be for our bow. I have to apologize for my nails. I was working and one chipped off, and isn't that not the way? It happens every time. Okay, so once you have all your lines where you would like them, you wanna use a permanent marker. This can be a really thick marker if you want. I'm actually kind of stuck with a kind of, it's actually more new of a Sharpie, even though it looks older. It still has a bit of a point, but when it's really dull, it's actually hard to make really fine lines. So I do suggest getting something by like Zebra as a waterproof marker. I can't find mine. I use it all the time, and of course I've moved it somewhere. So just gonna show you guys actually this round how I use my Sharpie marker, and just letting you guys know that when I do this, I'm barely pressing down. So if you have a really thick marker, barely press down, keep it on almost on the corner of the tip of the marker, and then that will help you definitely draw a little softer. When you're pressing straight down, it might make really, really fat lines depending on the Sharpie and how much it's been used. Now, I don't want to stay in one spot for too long and keep going over it because pretty shocking, the marker still doesn't fully dry when it goes down while you're painting it at the same time as drawing. So if I draw and then go right to painting, this can reactivate these markers, the marker lines, and it can actually kind of pull the marker into the painting and muddy it. So I do suggest kind of going quick in the sense of not drawing really fast, but just doing one line and then doing one line and moving on. Don't sit there and keep drawing it because we're gonna paint over it anyway. These are just some guidelines. You can take a photo of your piece before you start painting. It's a great way to know where you put line work in case you cover it up with paint and you can't see your lines. But taking photos of the process all the way through is smart. I'm gonna go ahead and use my little piece for my horn. I'm gonna lay this back down. And now I'm just gonna finish my little gingerbread so at least I know where I want my little eyes. So I don't want to do that for too long. Again, it won't be dry, and I'm painting mine all in the same time that I'm drawing this. So even though it's a Sharpie marker and you think, oh, it's gonna be safe, everything's gonna be good, it doesn't always work out that way. You can draw any like little gumdrops or anything that she has on her tummy. I'm gonna go ahead and leave mine off because I'm gonna add it at the end. So I'm really not that worried about making the lines like perfect there. So I will add some more details as I go. Okay. Any colors that I choose to paint with, you can change them up. You don't have to use the colors I use. The only color I cannot find, and I discovered this yesterday, is yellow ochre. I just can't find it in my kit. I've looked all around my room, still can't find it, and that's okay, but yellow ochre will warm up your brown tones that we're starting to use. If you just do a light like watercolor wash of like a mustardy yellow, very soft, more of a watercolor than a heavy paint. At the very end, you just kind of wash it over. It will add kind of a warm glow to the gingerbread cookie. If you don't have something like that, like little light apricot, Jaune Brilliant, things like that will also warm it up, and that's what I'll be using today. You have to work with what you have. And it's always great to show you guys how I, deal with maybe something I didn't have, or just kind of rethinking the colors. Like, okay, if I don't have yellow ochre, what would make it warmer? Okay, a little bit of like a pink tone, but I don't want it red. And then you kind of go to more of a peach. So everybody will start to kind of discover their own ways of painting as you keep practicing and doing the project. I'm going to start first with the darkest brown that I have. I'm using acrylic wash for everything. You can use acrylic paint. You can use regular gouache. I highly suggest acrylic wash. It's going to dry like an acrylic, but it can be reactivated for much longer, adding a little bit of water. Maybe you do it too heavy and it starts to dry, and then you want to reactivate, kind of like watercolor. You just add some water and you can work it back in, but you can also use it really heavy and opaque, and that'll create kind of like a creamy layer that you can move around, and it dries really lovely. So if you've never done it before, I highly suggest these, and I always say Art Supply Warehouse is where I get mine. It's the most affordable I've ever found. Holbein acrylic wash. And if you guys have any questions, you can always ask, or you can send me a DM on Critterosity on Instagram, or leave a comment here and I can hook up the link right to it. Okay, so we're not going to use too many colors. It's a lot of brown and pinks and red. A little bit of teal will be the little highlights for the little gumdrops and such. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get it on my brush. I barely have any water on this. We're gonna do dry brushing. Dry brushing means there's just not a lot of water. Even though I'm covering this, I still wanna put it down, because what if the glue moves and as it's drying, sometimes it'll kind of settle and shift. And then guess what happens? You see this as the background. Now, since she's a ginger buns, the background of it right now is not bad, but let's say you're painting a pink color for your character and it slides over and you see the brown. So it's better to kind of pretend as if we can see this all in the back and start to paint it kind of similar colors. So if I'm doing my bow red, I'm gonna wanna use crimson as my little color right here, just in case the bow shifts. So those are kind of things to keep in mind as you go. Okay, so as you start to run out, just barely, a little bit goes a long way. This is for acrylic paint or acrylic wash. And I'm just getting the edges. Now, if it's very specific and you're just trying to follow the edge, it's not gonna feel very natural. Blending it in, not covering the whole thing, just blending it a little is gonna be very helpful. I'm gonna go ahead and do the whole horn on the left side because that one is farther away. This one's gonna be closer to us. So I'm gonna add the shadow just to the bottom because we're gonna see more of a highlight on this one. So I'm just adding it to the edge here on the bottom of that. And of course, you've got your ginger buns and your ginger, I call it a ginger buns all the time, even though it's just gingerbread this round. For him, I'm actually gonna cover the whole character. I'm just dipping my brush just the teeniest bit in water and tapping it off. I always have my paper towel ready to go to take off any excess paint that I don't need or any water. So for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and just cover him. You're gonna see her arm on the right side, just like the horn. We're just gonna do the bottom of her arm, but I'm adding a bit more water to him so they look like two different brown tones. I'll add more to my gingerbread character in a minute, but I don't want them to match perfectly or you won't see her arm. So I'm making her a bit more dark, as if she got cooked a little extra on the edges. She's a little crisp. And I'm just putting a little bit more. If you mess this up or it's not working, you can keep trying, or you can just keep painting and come back to it later. But you can see that I had a little bit extra water from my brush, so I'm just tapping some of it off and getting more paint as I go. A little bit goes a long way. And I'm just kind of doing the bottom of her arm and most of where she's holding the other part of her other arm. So her hand is holding onto that, and then the gingerbread is right behind it. So now that we have that kind of laid out, I'm gonna switch my brush. I'm just using Princeton little mop brushes, as they're called, a deerfoot brush. And most affordable brushes, I think, that are fantastic for the price that they are, is Princeton. So we're gonna use our crimson red. And while we're here, if anything should happen, like paint boogers, you can grab cheapo 99-cent store scissors. Just be really careful that you are actually in the tube as you start to move it around and you don't go past it and hit your hand. And you just twist until you've got most of the dry, as I call them, paint boogers out. And then I have a little area, I set it on a little kind of like an extra towel to the side until I might need it again. So now look at that, it cleared up my tube of paint pretty quick. This is where I said you might see the character's bow in the background, but remember, this one is an actual shape. So if you go too far out, it's not gonna be a good idea. So what I'm doing is I'm doing more inside, less where the gingerbread would be, because let's just say you go too far left, this isn't gonna cover it and you're gonna have to go over it with brown. So even like right under it, you could see a little bit. I think I covered it. And then I realized I didn't do this side brown on here. So I'm gonna add some more brown, go back to my first brush. And the more brushes you have, the more opportunity to just move quicker. If you are sticking to the same brush for the entire thing, usually that's to stay like all in the brown tones. I'm gonna use the brown brush. But if you want like a red brush and a brown brush and a beige brush, and you kind of move them around, it goes so much faster. But when you only have like one brush in your kit for everything, you have to clean it constantly. With this, it's like I can kind of let the brown, it's not acrylic paint, so when it dries, it's not like making the paint be stuck to the brush. Since it's acrylic wash, it actually is very forgiving. If this ever happens, by the way, you can kind of squeeze the tube to open that and then tap and it'll start to fall back down. I'm gonna scoop up some of this. I have some dry paint that's kind of stopping it from going down there. I just kind of squeeze and make a little bubble. Whoop, there it goes, and it goes back into my paint. Because just that right there could do like an entire project for me, what I just accidentally squeezed out on that. So just letting you guys know, every little bit of paint counts. I'm gonna clean my brush off. I had way too much paint on there. And then as I dry it, I'm just going to now tap some of this on. I kind of forget what I was saying. I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, the paintbrushes, just the more paintbrush options you have, the better it is and the faster you'll go making your designs. If you're just using one brush and you're going purple, now I need to clean it off, pink, now I need to clean it off. Just buy the extra brushes. It ends up paying for itself at the end of it all. Since I have this extra paint, I always try to find ways to utilize it. So I'm just adding a little bit more to those arms, like I said, a little less on the character. But it is really hard to kind of get right in there perfectly unless you're using a tiny brush. I like to use a mop brush for this part because I can actually like make it look almost like a cookie crumble. So next I'm gonna use Raw Sienna. Raw Sienna is just like a nice soft brown tone, and I love it for all of my cookie painting. So I am now going to stay away from the edges as best I can. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of get near the edge, but not go completely over it. And this is because there's so much paint on there, we're gonna lose that detail that we just did with the shading. And look, if you go on the lighter part of it, since we didn't add brown, it's not going to be super hard to keep it like a lighter tone. Even though I'm going to cover this, I'm still going to pretend as if it's not getting that layer of horn on that side. So if you start to see the same dots repetitively over and over like this, what you want to do is you want to twist your brush and get different parts of the brush touching down. So it's going to be covered on this side. We still want to pretend as if we can see everything. Okay, even all the way up to the bow. And I'm just kind of stippling and pressing it, kind of like a stencil. When you're doing stenciling and you have to go up and down so the paint doesn't go underneath your stencil, we just want to go up, down, up, down, up, down. And then reminder, if you just did your marker, you might even reactivate it if you have too much water on your brush. So I can start to see my markers being pulled in a little bit. When you feel like your brush is almost completely dry and there's no more paint on it, this is a great time to do blending. So this is usually when I go back and I soften and blur out my edges. So I don't want to lose that dark edge, but also, that sounds funny, like she's so edgy, we don't want to lose her dark edge. But also, it's going to show up as long as your paint is pretty light. It's going to stay darker, and we're going to get lighter than this as well. So now I'm going to move to my light apricot, and I'm just going to add, I'm going to tap a little bit off. This is dry paint again. I'm going to add a little in highlight areas. And I want to move kind of quick, so if you're doing acrylic, only do a little bit at a time. Don't go everywhere. Since I have this acrylic wash, it takes a minute for it to dry. I'm finding areas to add highlights. So where the sun would kind of be hitting her face. A reminder to also take a photo before you start painting, because you might cover the eyes and the mouth, or it will get really busy with design and you're going to be like, where did I draw everything? So it does help to take pictures before you start. So see how I could keep moving? I could keep adding to that. That's what I'm talking about with this paint, is it's not just going to dry in 5 seconds like acrylic. it has some hang time. You know, it can actually take a minute to dry. I'm going to go back to raw sienna, and now I'm going to start to kind of apply that very softly, barely tapping down. I always tell people, if you have done makeup or applied anything like a makeup, it is very beneficial to painting, because a lot of what I'm doing could be used for like a blush when you're trying to add highlights to your cheeks and stuff like that. So just letting you guys know that, and face painting are always extremely helpful to the painter. You learn a lot of little tricks here and there to make things look 3D or have that effect of highlights and lowlights to look like it's more 3D. And those are things that I've learned while I had those kind of jobs. So I was never a makeup artist, but I was a face painter. So I learned a lot with all the tricks I could do with really quick painting. Honestly, you learn a lot of ways to highlight and lowlight just by adding to a scar. You can do red, and then under the scar you add a little bit of like a brownish tone underneath the red, and a little bit of burgundy, and then you add a highlight of bright red over the burgundy scar, and then it just starts to come to life. And it's just little things like this, just little highlights and lowlights that are going to start to change the illustration and the painting. You can't wait for this to go to auction. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you. It will be there. It will be there. And thanks for tuning in live. Okay, this one I'm going right to raw sienna. This is because I want them to look different. I don't want them to be identical. I want them to feel slightly different in the colors, because I don't want it to look like she, I don't know. I don't want it to look like she is part of that gingerbread piece. So since I'm going to lighten it up, I'm going to go back to my light apricot. If you don't have these colors, you can ask about how to get these colors, or, you know, what was the color of that? Obviously we're filming live, so you can check it out. Now I'm just adding light apricot to this whole thing, and then you're going to see how the brown, the raw sienna, is going to really be more vibrant on the ginger bun. I keep calling him ginger buns, and I mean gingerbread because he's not a ginger bun character. Those are my other characters. I'm going to go back to this raw sienna, and I have a little bit of that light apricot on it. Sorry if the table's shaking. Boop, 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 boop. I forget what I was about to say. I keep forgetting because I have so many thoughts on this one. But it's just a lot of fun to add different detail, especially if you know it's a little cookie. If things start to look too placed, you want to make sure you feather it out before you're done. You can always stack the little arms back onto your character and the little bow and start to get it. If it goes off the screen, don't worry, I'll keep pulling it back. All right. So you can always feather it if it's starting to look too placed before it's dry. Can't really do this with acrylic. This is why I always suggest acrylic wash. And once you start your kit, those colors are going to last a long time, especially if you're doing my workshops only like once a month and you're really not utilizing paint any other time. You're going to start to see like, oh, okay, now I get it. This paint is worth it. It's worth every penny. So now that we've done that, watch this. Watch when we bring this in and we do the raw sienna now that it's dry. I mean, that's how quick it dries. The raw sienna directly onto this, it's going to be a much lighter, even tone than she is, because she is going to be, she's going to be more detailed. She's going to be the realistic thing, if you will. So we're adding some raw sienna to her hand again. Okay. And some more raw sienna over here. Raw sienna has like kind of a warmth to it to begin with. That apricot is kind of pulling more of a light tone into it. So I'm just trying to add a little bit more warmth before I move on. If you're hiding the face, you can't see it anymore, you can always redraw it before you keep moving on. You can also take a little bit of water and very little paint, okay? And you can watch, you can even brush it back over it and maybe use a dry brush to kind of stipple it again. There's different ways to go about this. If you can't see your face anymore on the ginger bun, nope. Ginger Squatch. I have so many ginger characters now. Gingerbread, ginger Squatch, ginger buns. What you can do is take your towel, and if it's kind of damp, you can, on the character, I can kind of press down and reveal my line work again. And I can start to see it again if it's damp. But right now I feel like I'm really happy with where it is and I don't want to mess that up. So just to show you guys, you can add a little bit of water to kind of loosen up the painting a bit. And I can add some here. And then that way, again, the brown and the kind of golden brown color on her starts to, you know, work together. And also, I just wanted to say that it's going to look really damp for a minute. So we're going to work on the bow for a minute. So there we go. Gimme. Okay, so now I'm going to move this, and if you're not using a ton of water, it dries pretty quick. You can also use a dry brush, like a really dry brush, and you can actually suck up a lot of this paint and move it along faster for drying. It's just that there's too much water, it might be oversaturated, so you can always just wipe it off, all the extra. So that might help, you know, dry faster, but we'll move on so you guys can see that I don't stay in one place too long. And that's how, when people say, how do you finish them so quick? It's not necessarily that I'm just that good. It's that I know that I can't mess with it too much, or it's just going to keep getting muddied, and I'm not going to like the color of it. You got to let it dry, because it's always going to dry a different color when it's done. It's never going to stay the color you put down, because right now it has a lot of water in it, but as it dries, it's going to get softer and softer in color. Okay, so I've got my kind of burgundy down, and now I'm going to add again another highlight. I'm going to a brighter red. Okay, I don't want this red to be the whole thing, because this is actually going to be the color of her nose, but I'm going to add a little highlight of this towards the top. So see how that really dark tone underneath helps kind of see that. And I'm going to add glitter. I'm going to add glitter to mine. So I'm actually going to glitter mine right now while it's still damp. If you guys want to wait till, you know, you're done, you can do that. I've got my glitter right here just to quickly throw into the little pan. And then I'm just going to tap. And I've got my little, kind of my little sprinkles on my character. So let me just press down one more time. There we go. So that way mine's like pretty much done. And when I go to spray it, I do use a, I don't think I've ever shown my varnish that I use, but I love using the Montana varnish, and I go with the matte spray. So this one is not high gloss or anything like that. It's just more of a chill varnish. It adds a nice little, just a natural coating, and it will keep your paint safe underneath. So just a suggestion for anyone that might have been looking. You can glitter now or you can glitter later. It's completely up to you. Sometimes I'll glitter when I spray it. I'll then sprinkle it on, because the spray adhesive, that's a great question. The spray is almost like an adhesive when it's damp. It's very sticky. So sometimes I'll just kind of grab it and sprinkle it with my fingers, or if there's specific places, I'll kind of put my finger in the glitter and tap it on the cheeks or things like that when I've sprayed it. But for this one, I did have a lot of red, so I was like, you know what, let's just do it now. So kind of your choice. Now, when the paint dries, it's not a glue. So it may, as you go to spray it, the glitter may start to fly off, and it will fly off onto the other parts that are sprayed. For this character, I don't care, because I love glitter, and I think she's just a fun little character. Her name is Sugar, they named her, so during our other lives. So she has definitely got a lot of sugar that's going to go on her. Okay, so now that we've done that, this will start to stick if you paint and then put it down, but just lift it up. You'll be all good. All right, so I can see where her eyes go and all that, but I also added this little dark area that I'm going to try to fix up. It wasn't something I was meaning to do. It just kind of happened as I was showing how there's more like water you can add. If I go to Jaune Brilliant, now you're going to see a bit of like a pinkish tone is going to come into play. It's a little bit more peach, if you will. So I'm going to mess with that for a second, just right by her face, so that it will highlight it a bit more and add a little bit of a pretty color. You can mix in your raw sienna. Everyone's using different paints, and everybody's project will look completely different. So that's why it's crucial to practice and have fun and try new things. And if something doesn't work, cover it up and wait for it to dry and come back to it. I always say paint is something so many people are scared of, but really it's one of the most forgiving materials. What am I trying to say? Yeah, I guess materials to work with. Because you can actually cover it up pretty easily once it's dry. It all depends on the product you're using. It depends on if you're really focusing on what you're trying to do. If you're just trying to get it all painted really fast, then, you know, it'll probably look rushed. And if you take your time, it will start to help a lot more. So let me lay this down. I think her arm will need a little bit more help, but we're going to cover that in just a second. So what I'm going to do is go back to my dark brown. I'm going to use a line brush, and I have a lot of water on my paper towel, so when I wipe it off, it's got an it adds almost like a watercolor. And now I can use it like a pencil and just kind of pick it up, and I can go under each finger, and I'm just pulling. I'm not even pushing down. I'm just pulling and letting the brush drag. So now we're starting to give her some line work underneath, because remember, this is the darkest tone, so it's like a shadow. I'm going to go under her finger, and I'll bring this up so you guys can see it a little better. I'm adding a little bit of water, and my paper towel's damp, so it's kind of nice. It keeps it activated. I'm going to add a little swirl to her. It's kind of like hair. Best way to put it. I don't know. My little squatches have like little hair puffs. So now I'm just going to go in two different directions. I'm going to go this way and swirl it around. So it makes like a little heart, if you can see that. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm adding shadows to all the different pieces. So if you want to, you can add a little bit more shadow to your character. And if you want, you can take a dry brush and kind of work it in as well. So let's clean off one of my brushes, give it a little bit of water, and I can blend it in to soften that. Blend this one in a little bit to soften it. And when we add our white, it's really gonna pop. The character's gonna have a lot of highlight. So even though it seems really dark right now, it'll be more of a highlight later. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the back horn and then the front horn. Let me find my line brush. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to dip this in and then go on my damp towel over here and kind of work off any extra. And the lighter it is, the better. This will allow me to make any kind of like little mistakes I need to, because it does happen. And if the paint is just like a big glob, it's a little hard to control. All right, so now I'm gonna bring this one in, okay? And I did little kind of C shapes, so I was following the curve of this. If you wanna make one really thick and then one thinner, you can do that. Now that I kind of have my idea, now I'm going to start to like work on placement and highlights and lowlights. So now I can just add a little bit more line work pieces. I'm just kind of blending it a little bit because it's going to have highlights on it as well. So we're just blending things in. This is just a little bit of water on my brush is just kind of, look at that. It just adds a natural shadow where the bow will be. If you can't see your face anymore, I'm so sorry. You can always draw it back on. So I would put my little character piece back on because I don't want to hide where her little nose is. She's got her little eyes, her nose, and her little smile. So she won't be identical to what I first did, but she'll be close enough. All right, and she'll just be another version. Okay, I'm gonna use my burgundy red to start where the nose is. So I'm just kind of going around. If I drew somewhere I didn't like, I can just cover it up with paint. Okay, so there's her little nose. Now I can start to sketch out where her little eyelids are. And I'm gonna use my raw sienna for that part. How long does this take for a beginner? That's a great question as well. So it really depends on how how much you're rushing it and how much you actually want it to look good. So if you are a beginner and you're taking in everything I'm telling you, I always say it can take about 2 hours to complete it. For me, just teaching can take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half to explain each piece. So even for someone like me, it can take a little while. So it could take up to 2 days. It all depends on if they're rushing, if they're just trying to coat the whole thing, they don't really care about the detail. If they're trying to get all the detail, they could be overthinking it, and that takes a little bit longer. So I would say 2 hours is like a good amount of time, but it could take 3 to 5 hours. Now I'm adding raw sienna as a highlight, and I'm just dragging it through that little area where I made the little lines. And as you can see, that highlight is kind of giving it a realistic feel than just some straight lines through it. It's kind of giving it a little bit of a detail. So that's why I like to just kind of be loose with my painting. The person that's looking at it will be able to figure it out, so you don't have to worry about being so specific with your paints. I'm gonna add a little bit more warmth here. I feel like we're losing a little bit of the warmth on the character. There we go. And like I said, if I had my yellow ochre, which I did have it, I know it's here, I just cannot find it, that would make it like have a little bit of a golden tone, so it'll be like a little golder, and that really, really, really makes it even more realistic when you see it. Right now it's just very, very raw sienna, very much so. Okay, excuse me. All right, so next what I'm gonna do is, now that I've kind of made my little triangle shapes, which maybe you can't see, I'm gonna help you guys locate those. I'm gonna start my little triangles. So there's my little triangles to kind of show the eyelid. So very Looney Tunes kind of illustrations, Tiny Toons, very Warner Brothers characters. Like the Animaniacs, when their eyes are closed, you kind of see that little triangle shape, something I learned when I was really young. So whenever I draw eyes closed, I do like to add usually like a cute little eyelid. You can even add like a teal tone or a pink tone to add some eyeshadow to the eyes. Perfect for a rainy day craft, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, now you have an option. You can use black for the eyelashes, or you can use light brown. First, I'm gonna start with my light apricot to add a highlight to the eyelid. So I'm just gonna follow it right up the middle to the tip of the triangle shape, almost like a little sailboat, like I told you guys. Okay, so this, a light apricot or a jaune brilliant would work for that. You can also take your lighter tones and add little dots as points of interest, just to show like cookie crumbles. I don't suggest touching the paint. I always do because I've been doing this forever and I don't seem to follow my own rules there. But just letting you guys know, not good idea to touch paint. Paint can be toxic and some people can be allergic to it. So just letting you know. I just always have done this as like a way to make multiple dots really fast. I just kind of touch down and then I go to other spots while it's still damp, and then it softens it as well. So I would suggest like a little part of your paintbrush or some, or paintbrush, your towel. But if you add little dots, it kind of looks like you have little spots on the cookie. So you could do that as well. And same for her arm, same for the horn. The horn can have a highlight as well. So if I go and I kind of knock off some of that, I can give her a little highlight on her horn with the lighter tone. I'm just adding it right up the middle of it. And I know it's like, well, wait a minute, she's a cookie. How does she have a shiny, you know, shiny horn? Well, it's a cartoon. And we're kind of showing that she's not really a full cookie. She's actually a little Squatch that just happens to look like a cookie. I'm using that light color to add some highlights around the edges. A little highlight at the bottom here where the curls are, or the little swirls, I don't know, swirls and curls. You can even add this. So a little highlight, just roughly. This isn't meant to be specific. I'm just kind of touching my brush in different areas to have it lay down different ways. If again, you keep repeating the same shapes, it'll start to look very placed. Before I add black or brown to the lashes, I'm going to show you both because I can go from brown to the black lashes and it's not going to affect anything. I'm going to do my cheeks, which are this coral red. And I absolutely love this color. It is my favorite for adding any kind of rosiness to it. Good evening and thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you stopping by. And I'm just, again, a damp towel, which is fine if you need like a little paper or canvas to keep this on. I use this table because I can wipe it down really easily. It's a quick cleanup table, so I'm just using this for now. And I'm going to add a little rouge. Now, I added more water to this, not a ton of water, but I added more water than paint because I don't want a big glob of paint. It's not the look I'm going for this one. So a soft tone, just a little warmth to her is all I want. Okay, and it same goes for my little gingerbread. I just want him to have a little warmth. Now, you can't see his face right now, but you will in a minute. So I'm just kind of going right to the cheeks, right where the cheeks would be. Do, 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 do. And there we go. I'm going to hold this up so you guys can see it a little better. All right, so we've got a little warmth here and a little warmth on our little ginger character. So see how that works? And there is a pencil line right under the nose, and all I'm going to do is add a little shadow of brown just to help that one out. Okay, so as it's drying, my colors are coming out nicely. I'm really liking that they're kind of adding a golden glow. So now I'm going to take a little bit of that dark brown. I don't want all of it. I just want it really watered down. And I'm going to follow under the nose just a little bit so it looks like a low light. And while I'm there, I'm going to start to make where I want my mouth to go. Now that I've added my blush, and I can kind of darken the left side of this because, again, shadows, and then it gets lighter as the light's hitting it, so I'm adding a little more shadow to that. Now that my darker brown is down and it's not acrylic paint, because, again, acrylic paint is going to dry and you're not going to be able to mess with it. It's almost like sculpting. Acrylic wash, you can just keep maneuvering and adding more and adding more. Now I can thin it out to look more like a shadow. So a little bit of water just kind of helped add a little bit of a shadow to that. Okay, that way it doesn't look like a mustache, just kind of a little shadow. And it started to cover up that little pencil line that I had. And so I'm just kind of sculpting and shaping. That's all I'm doing with my shadows. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys first with a dark brown lash. That way it stays more a softer look. And then I'm going to show you with black because I would like her to have the black lashes. I try to only do the black colors for my characters where they're necessary, so they really help it pop and make a point of it, as opposed to like a black outline for everything. Now, everyone has their own way of doing art, so that's no judgment. It's a style choice that I would like. So when I do this, it kind of blends in. It doesn't really show the character very well. That's just my own opinion. I like to add the black for the lashes because it will be the darkest point on her and the darkest point on my little ginger bread. Didn't say the wrong thing this time. On my gingerbread will be the eyes. So that's why I'm saying like making those kind of choices as you're working on it is going to be really helpful to know what you're going for and what you like. I'm just adding a little water to this just to kind of blend a little bit more this color that is getting a little dark there. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is start on my little gingerbread. My bow is basically done. I'm not doing anything too crazy to that. The great part about this, you guys, is it's like decorating a cookie. You get to make this character look the way you would like. I'm going to use a little bit of my dark brown for her little... Oh, wait, no, that's not her thumb. It's so funny. This whole time I was thinking that was her thumb. No, that's the little button, but it's fine. We'll just add a little bit of a dark. So when we add the teal, it'll look like a shadow. If we add too much of the same brown for a shadow, it's going to blend in with her arms. So I'm just going really quick with like a little watercolor. Just a little bit of a watered down brown. And you can even draw the little face with this watercolor, just very, very light brown. You can draw where the nose is gonna go, where the eyes are gonna go, where the little head closes maybe it doesn't close, maybe it's just the cookie is got one big shape. All right, and then I'm gonna add some dots to my little stuffed animal character. I'm gonna add a little bit of this Jaune Brilliant, right? Yeah, Jaune Brilliant to the cheeks to add a little glow. I'm gonna give her a little glow on her cheeks too. I'm using Jaune Brilliant and not white so that it stays more in the pinky peach tone. Pinky peach tone. And I can even add a highlight over the nose right there. Can add a little more highlight to her eyes, just a little bit more. Add a little more highlight to her horns. Whatever you guys want to do and whatever yours calls for, you can keep doing that. All right, I'm going to give them both red noses. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is see how we use that burgundy on her nose. It's going to make the red stand out even more. So that's why we like to add that little low light underneath. And when we add the white highlight, it's really going to start to pop for her. All right, I'm just going to take my little tiny brush and just lay it kind of sideways and make a cute little red nose. I'm not even going in with a burgundy for him. I'm just leaving it right as is. Okay, so just laying my brush down and touching it right there. You could do a red little mouth. You can do a burgundy mouth. You can do a white frosting mouth. It's whatever you guys want. I think for mine, I'm gonna do, I think I'm gonna think on that. I think I'm going to think. All right, I'm gonna go back to the black that I was talking about, where I'm gonna add black lashes and black little dots for the little gingerbread eyes. And then again, you guys will see how it really makes it stand out more. And if that's the only place I put black, it gives it a whole purpose for it. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. Like the only reason you used black for this cute little soft character for the paint is because it's a statement. You know, lashes are an important thing for this girl. She needs her lashes to really stand out. Okay, it's probably a little damp, so I'm gonna let that dry. And now I'm gonna take my little tiny brush and I'm gonna carefully do 2 little dots. I'm barely pushing down, just getting it just enough. You guys see that? And then her lashes, we're gonna let it dry. Okay, because it keeps just pulling the paint up. Anytime something isn't working for me, I'm like, it's not the time to work on it. Move to the next thing, move to the next thing. Okay, now I'm gonna take that coral red I used on her cheeks and I'm gonna add a highlight to the nose. So just a little highlight. We'll also do a white highlight, but that's just gonna take it one more step further. For my little character, you can use things like vermilion as a bright red. That's the one that we used for her was vermilion, but there's also luminous red. And luminous red with this brand is so vibrant, just absolutely so vibrant. Oh yeah, she has a little gingerbread Betty. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so very much for noticing the little details. All right, so luminous red is going to go on the very top of my little gingerbread nose. So it was kind of sinking in and now it's not as much. Her, I want to keep her a little more realistic, so I'll add a touch of this luminous red, but I don't want it to be like an orangey red, but for him, I felt like it brightened it up a lot more. So, and thank you for all the compliments, you guys that are watching live in the chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Making me feel so special. Okay, so now I'm still thinking on what color I want to do the lips. I'm not there yet. So let me piece this together really fast and see before I start all my white acrylic. And I'll be using acrylic white because I love how opaque it is and how vibrant. All right, if I place all this down, you guys can start to see how the gingerbread character starts to blend in with her arms. It's not standing out. So this is where I'm gonna use my Jaune Brilliant and add little highlights. I'm gonna water down my brush a little bit, do the same thing, tap it off, add a little bit of water, tap it off, and then I'm going to go around and I'm just gonna let it kind of glide over the character, not trying to place it perfectly because he is a cookie little character. And I'm just adding little highlights, and you can see where the dry brush just kind of takes over, and it's just super soft, and I'm not trying to like be very specific. This is going to be a little teal button on his little chest, so that will change in color too. So that's why like colors like Jaune Brilliant, Yellow Ochre, Raw Sienna, Burnt Sienna, all those colors are going to be in the same kind of wheelhouse, that if you want to change something or highlight something or add a reddish tone or a pinkish tone, you can do that and separate your characters from looking too close together. Now it looks like she's actually holding something. Yep, this one is Luminous Red. There you go. Gonna have glitter. I don't think so, because it's more like a stuffed animal. So I think he's gonna leave, I think we're just gonna leave him as is, and we're just gonna let him be. She'll be more the one that has like actual glitter, so it looks like she's coming to life. Yeah. And we are just about ready for white. I think I'm gonna do white for his little smile. But I am going to take a little bit of brown just to add a little background for his smile, so that when I add the white, maybe that brown will help. And then a little eyebrows will be brown. Her eyebrows are going to be brown. Okay, anywhere that you think you need to move something, if there's anything you need to kind of add, do it before you add any super glue. Because how many times do I go back and I add super glue and then I try to paint and then the super glue gets on my paintbrush, and then I get mad because I should have done it before I started that part. So just a reminder, try to figure everything out before you start using super glue. Okay, I'm gonna use teal for both their buttons. I really want them to match, kind of like when little girls get their little dolls, and little boys, okay? And they get their little dolls and then they want to match them. Like I was thinking of the All-American, what is it? I never got them. They were never dolls that I had, but the American Dolls or whatever, the little girls would have like matching outfits to their character. So that was always really cute. I'm gonna draw where I want my two little gumdrops as my little spots here. So I kind of want them to match a little bit. Like maybe she picked out this gingerbread because they both have red noses, and they both are going to have frosting, and they both have little teal buttons. Not my gumdrop buttons. Okay. And something I really like to do is I love taking this teal and adding little sprinkles to her cheeks. Just little sprinkles. Just making her more irresistible. Okay, rotating your brush. If it's not going on a perfect point and you're getting like lines as opposed to dots, you might have to rotate your brush a little bit, or load up a bunch on the end of your brush like this, and it'll be like a perfect little circle. And then you want different sizes though. You don't want them all the exact same. I might have overdone it on the right trying to fix it. So guess what I'm gonna do? Ready? Everything is fixable. Press and lift. And I'm going to use glitter. So you know what? Yeah, the teal will blend in. I'm not too worried about it now. Just didn't want too many. I like this side better, but that's just me. And then her little gumdrop buttons are going to have glitter, but not his. Because again, I want her to stand out as the realistic part of this, and then he's going to be a little different. American Girl dolls, that was it. Okay. So under these guys, under the gumdrops, we're gonna go to that darker brown tone. And you can always mix the brown and raw sienna. Like it doesn't always have to be the pure dark brown. You can actually mix the two. But for me, I've just been kind of going right for it. We're gonna add just a shadow so it looks like the gumdrops are kind of standing out. A little bit of watered down brown. Watered down brown, yeah, that's right. I'm just adding more of a shadow under her arm here. I'm noticing I want a little bit more of a shadow here, and a little bit under where his little body would be. So how much of this you do or don't do is up to you. Okay, now I'm ready for white. Yeah. And you can mix like teal and white to kind of add little specks. I'll do that first. I love that sound, mixing it all, mixing all my paint. Okay. I have some printed out labels paper, and it's super smooth, and it's almost like wax paper, as if I'm making an actual cookie. So I'm gonna mix a little bit of my colors together to start to stay in the same color scheme, but now we're just lightening that teal to a second color of teal. So now it's a little lighter, still the same color, and I'm gonna add little highlights in there. Trying to place her arm exact. Some little highlights. It may not even be noticeable, but it does show I'm trying to not stick with the same color for everything. I'm gonna round this one out a little bit. Okay, now we're gonna add the highlights to her nose. Sorry about that, guys. I thought I was in frame. There we go. All right, so I just added little highlights to her. Give me 1 second. I'll move this up just a bit. Okay, so we add little highlights. Now I'm gonna add a couple little white dots. Just like, not the exact same amount. I'm just dragging a little bit. The softer you are, the more control you'll have. And if you're pressing down, it's gonna do this. So that's why I always say to like, make sure your brush, you kind of bring it to a point by rolling it. And then you can add a little highlight to his nose if you trust yourself. Okay, because it is really tiny, really tiny. I'm gonna add a little bit of frosting here as if it's a little highlight on her ear as opposed to doing big lines through her ears. Okay, now I'm gonna work on her design, and this is where you guys get to have fun and treat it as if it's making an actual cookie. We're gonna take off this little bow, and now I'm gonna work my way around. I'm gonna start at the top, not pressing down hard. You can also use a Posca marker for this. Okay, if it runs out, that's good. It's supposed to feel kind of realistic. It's supposed to feel as if she walked right off the little baking sheet. So if you make a little boo-boo or something, it's okay. I'm just gonna follow her down the edge. This is where my little gingerbread's gonna start, so I can kind of skip that. I can move down to the bottom here. Now, if you're gonna make it really tricky, just be ready to make mistakes and have to go back. The easier you make it when you're painting, the better. I'm just kind of holding my hand steady with this hand. I'm just kind of placing my hand right here. You can also put your pinky down if you're good with that. But for me, it's kind of like piping. They kind of guide their hand and their arm. So now I'm gonna go downward, whatever's comfortable. If you need to rotate your canvas, you can move your character around. There's no rules on how to do this. I just know what my skills are, and I know what I can do and what I can't do. So there we go, I've got a little on that side. And then I just need to go on this area right here. Now, if you have a big glob of paint, just remember, the lighter you are, the more control you'll have over it. So be really soft with it when you go. Okay, I'm gonna add a little swirl, which is dangerous because I can mess this up really easily. Okay. And I can see where I kind of skipped a little spot. And I'm gonna go ahead and start a second one. I think she'll mostly have that covered, but that's okay. And then I think I'm gonna do white for her little smile. And a little white for her eyebrows. I was just gonna keep them brown, but I think I can control the white good enough. Okay, and then we need our little character to have his time in the little decoration pan here, if you will. Favorite part. Okay, so if your brush is not super pointy, okay, it's gonna be really hard to work on him. So keep it as simple as you can. Load it up just on the end. Make sure no water is running down your brush. Okay, the littlest amount that you have, the better. I've decided to give mine a little curly cue. I'm gonna bring this around, and I'm using this to shape his face. So I'm showing that his face comes in. All right, we're gonna just lighten this up. I wanna add a little bit to his arms, little to his arms. All right, a little wave on his leg. Wee, wee. And then I want to do her little arm, so I'm going to add something different so it doesn't blend into the character behind her. All right, just remember, whatever I do there, I might have to do on the other side. I'm just going to go around her fingers. We won't see the dots under the fingers because her fingers are there. Fingers. And now I'm going to take a little bit of this raw sienna with a little bit of white, and now I'm going to add a little highlight to her fingers, just at the top. So a little bit of white, a little of the raw sienna, and adding a little highlight to the tops of things. So just the top of her fingers, just the top of her arm. Now look how the dry brushing starts to come in. It's going to add that texture to it that looks more like a cookie. So dry brush is good. That's all I want you to know. Dry brushing is good. If I was off screen for any of this, I do apologize. I have the overhead camera pretty high up. Okay, so dry brush. Let it kind of dry out as you're painting so it adds a little crumble to it. Starting to do that nice little crumble. Okay, adding just some little highlights around the edges. Maybe a little bit right there. And not everywhere, just picking random spots that seem like the light would hit it. Okay, that one's a little too specific, so I'm just gonna water down my brush and work this one in. Okay, give her a little more highlight right here. Yeah, see? And then his little smile is so cute as is, but I feel like I would still want him to have white for his smile, so we're going to thin this out as good as possible, as soft as I can. Posca markers would be your friend in a situation like this if you don't already own some, but I like the challenge. This little curly Q, I'm just kind of coming in with the white a little bit brighter. Okay. And if you don't like a choice you made, you can always fix it up. I'll give him little smile lines. That's funny. Okay, and then I'm gonna give him a little low light here to kind of clean up how thick that white line was. Okay, so now the next step would be gluing it all together, adding some sparkles. So I'm just gonna show you guys once I start piecing it all together. All right, her little arm. Like I said, I continued through things that you may not even see. It's just that I carried through, so if anything accidentally moves, it looks like it was intentional and not that I skipped an area where I'm like, oh, you're not even gonna see it. And then for this bow, you guys could add a button to it right in the middle. You could do a little gumdrop. You could do a little bit of clay. You could add so many cute little things to this character. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab my glitter and a little bit of glue. Okay, so I just buy all kinds of glitter because it all comes in handy at different times. Okay, so this is Aline's Tacky Glue. I love Aline's Tacky Glue, longtime user of Aline's Tacky Glue, not sponsored Aline's Tacky Glue. Would love to be with how much of this I use and all the years I've used it. Okay, I'm just gonna tap with my mop brush in a couple spots. Just a little bit here. Whoops, that one was too much, but that was down by the gingerbread. Okay, I don't want any glue behind anything I'm going to press down, like where the horn is. I don't want any glue, glitter to go behind it because it won't glue flat. And I'm gonna put some on here. Now the great part about Aline's Tacky Glue is it dries pretty quick and things will only stick to those areas that are still a little bit damp. And I don't like excessive glitter except for when I really want it, and that was her bow. I want her bow to really have that, and then everything else to just be pretty light. And if you feel like it's sticking too much, you can always dust it off, as long as you know it's dry. Okay, so anything on an area where I'm gonna press something down, I want to make sure I really dust that off. And let me get my big dusting brush. We dust because we must. That's what I used to say to my kids when I face paint them. And we had to dust off all the extra glitter. So there we go. She's got a little glitter on her gumdrops. Now, if I go to spray it and I feel like a lot of it is blown off, what I do is I will, again, just take my finger and then just tap it as it's, after it's done being sprayed. But I do it while the spray is still very tacky. I'm very tacky, so I understand it. Okay, the Gorilla Glue that I use has to say 10 seconds on it. I tend in a rush of like, oh my gosh, I'm out of super glue. There is no super glue with the 10-second. I got to run to the store across the street and buy more. I buy the Gorilla Glue always that says 10-second drying, but sometimes I get the long lasting, which is still great, but it takes forever to dry. This is like you have literally about 15 seconds before you can't move it anymore. So first I just kind of place it, and then I use my hand to kind of round out where it should be. The more you're moving it, the more, you know, you can keep messing with it. But if you let it sit for just a few extra seconds, it'll dry. Sorry, I have to be over it just to kind of see. Once you think you've got it, don't tilt up and down. You can see I took some paint off there with my thumb. I thought it was dry. Don't put it up and down because it's going to slide. You got to let it dry right where it is. I'm adding just the tiniest bit, a dot. You don't need a lot. I do know I want a little on her elbow, barely putting that on there. And I'm just placing this one down. Try not to move it too much or else that glue will show up when it dries. It'll be like really dry looking and it'll leave a little patch even when you spray it. So just be really careful. Try to line everything up perfectly. Let it dry. And then I'm going to go here and then I'm going to touch up those couple little spots. Now I said not to paint when you've got the glue down, but these areas that I messed up a little bit with my hand when I was picking it up, those are not near the super glue. But yeah, so many times the super glue squishes out the bottom and then I go to touch something up and my paintbrush touches the super glue. So if you can avoid painting it the rest of that day that it's drying, I highly suggest letting it just do its thing. But as you can see, there's no super glue on this side that I'm going to be working on. So I messed that up a little bit. I messed the top up here just a little. And messing up is part of the process. Very rare when I don't have to go back and touch something up. Okay, I'm gonna round this one out a bit more. That's my hand moving. Sorry, it's making funny noises. Funny noises with my hand. Okay, so there it is. I'm very happy with her. I'm gonna add a little bit of a highlight of white into this. Just the lightest bit. And there we go. And when it's all done, I seal it with my Montana Clear Spray. And then that way, the Montana Clear Spray does not yellow over time. A lot of those clear sprays you buy at Home Depot and stuff, I'm not saying every single one, I'm just saying a lot of them will change over time and get a yellow tint to them. So it's best to kind of use a Montana Clear Spray. Thank you so much to everybody who asked. What's my glitter bill like? Not enough. I mean, in the best way, not enough. In like, I save money. I buy glitter in bulk. So my favorite glitter is the blocks of glitter you find at Walmart, and I believe they sell them also at Michael's Arts and Crafts. But I love these block glitter. They actually are stackable, so you can get them really nice in a drawer and stack them up. But also these last forever, and they cost me like $4. So I'm obsessed with that. Another trick that I love is going to swap meets and estate sales and going to people that sell people's craft items that maybe, you know, they were getting rid of them. These are from a yard sale. Greg picked those up. So I always have these in case I want to add a little gold or a little silver. Those aren't the only ones. We found plenty. And another type of glitter you can use is face painting glitter is really pretty. You just get the, like a fine cut is great, not the powdery ones, but more fine cut. And then the other thing you can use is makeup glitter. There's no rules on what glitter. You're going to end up spraying it and putting it underneath. So have fun with this. And again, so sorry if I pulled this a little bit close and you missed anything. If you have any questions for my workshop people that are using these as a DIY project and support my subscriptions, thank you first and foremost for subscribing to me and doing a project with me every month, which keeps me funded. But also just have fun with it. Just enjoy it. And if you have questions, write me, ask the questions, say, hey, at this point in time on the video, I couldn't see something. Can you explain that again? And I will happily send it to those that purchased the DIY project. If you guys missed out on this, how do you stop missing out? I highly suggest signing up. It is a project you can do. It is so fun. It's calm. And if you don't like the way I do it, you can make it any way you want. This is just an option to follow along. I am going to add one little tip to you guys for the eyelashes. I totally forgot. I use turquoise blue, and I go back with my fine brush, and then I just grab a little bit of that. I can knock off some of that color. I add a little touch, just a little touch of like a dark turquoise blue. And while I've got it on my brush, I can add a little shadow since it's kind of watered down. And it's always taking it just one step further, but it also softens the little lashes. It kind of gives them a highlight and softens them. So that is another tip. If you feel like the black was just a little too harsh, you can bring in a little bit of a dark turquoise blue. This one was turquoise blue, literally called turquoise blue. Thank you so much, you guys. Wishing you all the best. Happy New Year. And to those that are getting the November, had purchased the November ornament, I've actually sneak peeked it to my Instagram subscribers, and they're actually getting their first chance to kind of snag not only the secret menu items, I gave them a first opportunity to do that, but also giving them a chance to change their mind to do a DIY project with me when it comes out. So if you are an Instagram subscriber, you might have seen that option today. But also when the stories usually expire, that's when the offers expire with Instagram. So when I come out with like a random sticker sheet or coloring page, if that story disappears, they won't even know it was offered or the option is gone. So there are a lot of ways to subscribe and help Critterosity stay alive in 2025. Wow. That was a lot of Ives in there, but it really helps me and allows me to use my creativity and share it with the world. So thank you so much, you guys. Have a wonderful night. Take care of yourselves